All right, let's jump right in to our deep dive today.
That's good.
We're going to be looking at Matthew chapter 11.
All right.
And this chapter is super interesting to me.
Yeah.
Because it kind of feels like we're at a turning point in Jesus' ministry.
Absolutely. I think you're right on with that.
You know, up to this point, we've seen a lot of teaching, a lot of miracles, and now things are starting to get a little bit more intense, a little bit more controversial.
Yeah, I think the rubber's hitting the road.
Exactly.
In Matthew 11.
Yeah, and we see Jesus' identity really being challenged.
Yes.
And he starts to lay down the law a little bit about what it really means to follow him.
Yeah, and who he really is and what that looks like.
Yeah, so we're not just dealing with like a collection of feel-good stories here.
I know.
This is like getting down to the nitty-gritty.
Exactly. It's a revelation of who Jesus is and what he expects from those who say they believe in him.
And one of the things that I find so fascinating about this chapter is that we've got John the Baptist.
Yes.
Who's, you know, the guy who literally prepared the way for Jesus.
That's right. The forerunner. The voice crying out in the wilderness.
Yes, the one who baptized Jesus.
Yeah.
And he's now sitting in prison. And he sends his disciples to Jesus to ask this really pointed question.
That's right. A very pointed question.
Are you really the one, or should we expect someone else?
Yeah, that is a big question.
It's a huge question. And it's not just some random dude having doubts.
No.
This is John the Baptist.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, if anybody should know, it should be him.
You would think he would be like, yeah, that's the guy.
Right. He was there. He saw it.
I was there. I saw the dove descend. Like, this is it.
That's right.
So for him to question Jesus's identity at this point is mind-blowing.
It really is.
So what's going on here? Is John losing his faith? Is this some kind of test?
Yeah, those are great questions. And I think...
Help us out here.
I think, you know, scholars have wrestled with this for centuries, and there are a few different ways to look at it.
Okay.
Some scholars think it really is straight up doubt.
Yeah.
Especially given John's circumstances at this point.
He's not having a good time.
He is not. He's in prison. You know, he's facing execution.
Yeah.
And so you can understand why he might be having some second thoughts.
Yeah, if your mentor is about to be executed, you might have some questions yourself.
Exactly right.
Oh, wait a minute. Is this really how this is supposed to play out?
Right. Am I in the right place?
Yeah.
Did I get this wrong? And so there's that possibility.
Yeah.
But other scholars see it more as a strategic move on John's part.
Yep.
Almost like he's trying to solidify his disciples' faith in Jesus, even as John's own life is on the line. Like he's saying, look, I'm about to die, but I need you guys to see that this Jesus, he's the real deal. Go to him, ask him yourselves.
That's interesting.
And I think there's something really beautiful about that. Like, even in his darkest hour, he's still pointing people to Jesus.
Yeah.
But I think there's another layer here that's even more intriguing.
Oh, okay.
Maybe John's question isn't just about doubt or about his disciples' faith.
Okay.
Maybe it's about expectation.
What do you mean?
Well, think about it. John was steeped in this prophetic tradition.
Yeah.
He was expecting a Messiah who would overthrow Roman rule.
Okay, the conquering king.
Right, establish a powerful earthly kingdom.
Yeah.
You know, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, the classic Messiah image.
Exactly. But what he sees in Jesus is something radically different.
Okay.
It's a messiahship of humility and service, of healing and teaching, of reaching out to the marginalized, the poor, the sick, the outcast.
Yeah, so it's not the Messiah that he was expecting.
It's not the Messiah that he was expecting, and I think that's where the tension comes in.
Yeah.
Maybe John's question isn't so much, are you the Messiah?
Yeah.
But are you the Messiah I expected you to be? You know?
That's a really interesting way to look at it.
Because it challenges us to examine our own expectations of Jesus.
Yeah.
What kind of Messiah are we looking for?
Yeah. Are we looking for the Messiah that fits our preconceived notions, or are we looking for the Messiah who is going to turn our world upside down?
Exactly. And who's going to challenge us
to
see the world in a new way and to see ourselves in a new way.
Okay. So how does Jesus respond to this question?
Well, it's really interesting.
Does he have like a mic drop moment and say like, yes, I am?
He doesn't do that, actually. He does something much more profound. Instead of simply asserting his identity, he points to the evidence.
Okay.
And he says, the blind receive sight, the lame walk, those who have leprosy are cleansed, the deaf hear the dead are raised, and the good news is proclaimed to the poor.
Wow. He's like, look around. This is what the Messiah does.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Let my actions speak for themselves.
Yeah. And it's not just about believing certain things.
No.
It's about letting those beliefs transform us.
Absolutely.
From the inside out.
From the inside out. And it's about making a difference in the world around us.
Yeah. And that brings us to the next part of Matthew 11, where things take a pretty dramatic turn.
They do.
Jesus goes from this conversation about identity,
right,
to pronouncing woes upon 3 cities.
Yes.
Chorazin, Bethsaida, and Capernaum.
And these were not, like Sodom and Gomorrah.
Right.
These weren't like
the bad boy towns.
Right. These were not the places known for their wickedness.
Yeah.
In fact, it was quite the opposite.
Oh.
These were the towns where Jesus had performed many of his miracles.
Wait, so they'd seen the blind see
It's seen it.
The lame walk, the dead raise.
They had front row seats to the Messiah's power.
And they still got a woe.
What's
going on here?
And I think that's the question that we need to wrestle with, because it's almost like they had all the evidence.
Yeah.
They had all the proof.
They saw it with their own eyes.
Yeah. But somehow they missed the point entirely.
So what does it mean to truly see the work of God?
That's the question.
Yeah, to not just witness it,
right,
but to be changed by it.
To have it transform you.
Yeah.
And I think that gets to the heart of what Jesus is saying about repentance.
Okay.
When we think about repentance, we often picture this dramatic, tearful confession of sins.
Right.
But I think what Jesus is getting at here is something much deeper.
Okay.
It's a fundamental shift in our worldview.
Okay.
A change of heart that leads to a change of action.
So it's not just about feeling sorry for the bad stuff we've done.
No.
It's about turning away from those things and choosing a different path.
That's right.
Okay.
And I think the folks in those towns, they saw the miracles,
Yeah.
they heard the teachings, but it seems like they just went back to business as usual.
They didn't change.
There was no real transformation,
Yeah.
no commitment to following Jesus.
Yeah.
And embracing his message. And I think it's easy for us to look at those people and be like,
Oh, yeah, totally.
what's wrong with you guys?
Yeah, you saw it all. How could you?
You saw it all.
Yeah.
But how often do we do the same thing?
Oh, for sure.
We see glimpses of God's power.
Yeah.
We experience moments of grace, but then we just go right back.
Yeah, back
to our old pattern.
Yeah, our comfortable little ruts.
Our comfortable routines.
Yeah. And so we're not any different from
Not really.
those people in those towns.
And I think it's a human struggle, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
To truly allow ourselves to be changed
Yeah.
by the things that we see and hear.
Yeah. Why is that so hard?
I think there's a part of us that just resists change.
Yeah.
Even when we know it's good for us.
Yeah.
We kind of like to stay in our comfort zones.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of what's going on here.
It's scary.
It is scary.
Change is scary.
Change is scary. It means letting go of control, stepping outside of our comfort zones,
Yeah.
embracing the unknown.
And honestly, sometimes the unknown that Jesus offers doesn't look all that appealing.
Right. Like when you really think about it.
Yeah, it's not like worldly success. Or,
No, it's not a guarantee of health, wealth, and happiness.
Yeah.
It's,
Well,
it's about humility. It's about service.
Sacrifice.
Sacrifice, yeah. It's about...
Yeah, taking up our cross and following him.
That's right.
Which, speaking of taking up our cross,
Yes.
he talks about in this chapter that we should take his yoke upon ourselves.
Right.
And that his yoke is easy and his burden is light.
Yeah. What do you make of that?
I don't know, because sometimes that feels like a complete contradiction.
It does, doesn't it? Because
life as a Christian
yeah,
can be really tough.
it can be.
It can be demanding, full of challenges and struggles.
Right. And so when we hear that his yoke is easy,
Yeah.
we think, what is he talking about?
Yeah, like, is this a bait and switch?
Right. Does he not understand what I'm going through?
Yeah.
But I think we often misunderstand what Jesus is saying here.
Okay.
When we hear easy yoke, we think it means a life free of problems.
So like a cakewalk.
Right. A guaranteed path to happiness and success.
Yeah. No suffering, no pain.
Yeah. But I don't think that's what Jesus is promising at all.
So what is he talking about?
Well, let's think about what a yoke actually is.
Okay.
It's a device that's used to join two oxen together
Okay.
so they can share the load and work as a team.
Okay.
And I think that's the key.
Okay.
Jesus is inviting us into that kind of partnership with him.
So it's not about carrying our burdens alone.
No,
It's about letting him share the weight.
that's right.
Oh.
Letting him guide us and support us along the way.
Okay, that makes sense.
And so it's not that the burdens go away,
Yeah.
but it's that we're not carrying them by ourselves.
Yeah.
We have Jesus right there with us,
Yeah.
helping us to carry the load.
And I've experienced that. I've had times in my life where I've felt so weighed down
Yes.
by burdens and anxieties.
Yes.
And I've tried to muscle through them on my own.
Right.
And I just end up exhausted and defeated.
And what happens when you surrender those burdens to Jesus?
It's like this huge weight is lifted.
Yes.
And I can breathe again.
That's the lightness of his yoke.
Yeah. And it's not that the problems go away,
Right.
but it's that I have this sense of peace
Yes.
and strength,
Yes, yes.
knowing that I'm not alone.
That's the power of his presence.
Yeah. And I love that image of the yoke.
Yes.
Because it's not just about sharing the burden.
Right.
It's also about staying connected
Exactly.
to Jesus.
Yeah.
It's like he's there to guide us
That's right.
and keep us on the right path.
It keeps the oxen moving in the same direction.
Yeah.
It prevents them from wandering off course.
Yeah. So taking Jesus's yoke is about staying aligned with his purpose,
Yes.
trusting that he knows the best path for us,
That's right. Even when we can't see where we're going.
even when it doesn't make sense.
Even when it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Because his ways are higher than our ways.
Yeah. So much of this comes down to trust,
It really does.
doesn't it?
It's about surrendering our need to control,
Yeah.
to have all the answers.
To figure everything out on our own.
Right. To do it our way.
Yeah. It's about saying, okay, Jesus,
Yeah.
I trust you. Lead the way.
And that can be really hard, can it?
Oh, yeah.
Because we like to be in control.
We do.
We like to know what's going on,
Yeah. We like to have a plan.
right? We like to have all the answers.
Yeah. But sometimes God calls us to step out in faith
That's right.
and to trust him even when we don't understand.
Even when it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And that's where the real adventure begins.
Well, that's where the growth happens.
That's where the transformation happens.
Yeah. And so as we're talking about all of this, I keep thinking back to John the Baptist.
Yeah.
You know, he had this expectation
Right.
of who the Messiah would be.
Yeah.
And when Jesus didn't fit that mold,
Right.
it seems like it really threw him off.
It did. And I think it's a powerful reminder for us
Yeah.
that our preconceived notions,
Yeah.
our theological frameworks,
Yeah. Even our cultural conditioning
all of that.
can sometimes blind us
Yes.
to the true nature of God's work in the world.
Exactly.
Like we can get so focused on what we think should happen
Right.
that we miss the beauty and the wonder
Absolutely.
of what's actually unfolding right in front of us.
Right. We miss the surprises, the unexpected ways that God is moving.
A plot twist.
So plot twists, exactly. And that brings us to another really important point in Matthew 11,
Yeah.
where Jesus makes this incredible statement
Okay.
about his relationship with God the Father.
Okay.
He says, "All things have been committed to me by my Father. No one knows the Son except the Father, and no one knows the Father except the Son and those to whom the Son chooses to reveal him."
Now, I've heard that verse a million times.
Me too.
But honestly, sometimes it just kind of goes in one ear and out the other. Like, I don't really stop to think about what it actually means.
It's easy to just kind of glaze over it,
Yeah.
but it's actually a pretty mind-blowing claim.
Okay, so unpack it for us a little bit.
Well, what Jesus is saying here is that he has this unique,
Okay.
intimate knowledge of God,
Okay.
a connection that no one else shares.
Yep.
And not only that,
Yeah.
he's saying that he's the only way to truly know the Father.
Okay, so it's not just about, like,
No.
learning about God from a book.
It's not just about head knowledge.
Yeah.
It's about a relationship.
Okay.
It's about experiencing God
Right.
through a personal connection with Jesus.
It's like he's saying, forget everything you think you know about God.
right.
Come to me and I will show you the Father.
Exactly. And I think that's what makes the Christian faith so unique.
Okay.
It's not just about believing certain things
Right.
or following a set of rules.
Yeah.
It's about encountering a person who reveals the very heart of God to us. A person who reveals the very heart of God to us. And I think that changes everything, doesn't it?
It's not about, like, earning our way into God's good graces.
Yeah.
It's about receiving his grace as a free gift
That's right.
through Jesus.
Through Jesus. And that changes how we view faith.
Yeah, it's not just about intellectual assent.
Right.
It's about a personal encounter.
Yes.
A relationship that transforms us.
From the inside out.
Yeah, and as we're unpacking all of this from Matthew 11, it really strikes me that Jesus' invitation to rest,
Yes.
it's so much more than just like taking a nap.
It's not about getting a good night's sleep.
Yeah, or going on vacation.
Right.
It's about this deep soul rest
Absolutely.
that comes from being in right relationship with God.
It's about finding our true identity and purpose in him.
Yeah, it's about surrendering to his love and his grace.
And it's radical because it challenges everything our culture tells us.
Right. We're supposed to be striving and achieving and proving our worth.
Right. You got to hustle. You got to grind.
You got to have it all.
You got to make something of yourself.
Yeah, but Jesus is saying, like, no, your value isn't based on what you do.
Right.
It's based on who you are.
You are a beloved child of God.
Yeah, and that's it.
And that's enough.
Yeah, and I think that's where the real rest comes from.
It's about knowing that you're loved unconditionally.
Yeah.
And that nothing you can do can change that.
Yeah, and that kind of freedom is terrifying and exhilarating at the same time.
Absolutely, because it requires us to let go of our need to control.
Of our need to perform.
Earn our worth.
And just rest in God's love.
And that's not easy.
No. It goes against everything we've been taught.
It does.
But it's the only way to truly find peace.
And it's the path to true joy.
Yeah. And it all comes back to that idea of taking Jesus's yoke upon us.
Yes.
It's about surrendering our will to his will.
Trusting that he knows what's best for us.
Yeah. Even when it doesn't make sense.
Even when it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Which is so hard.
It is so hard because we want to be in control.
We do.
We want to know what's happening.
Yeah. We like to have a plan.
But sometimes God calls us to step out in faith.
Yeah.
And to trust him.
And just follow.
Just follow where he leads.
Yeah, even when we can't see the path ahead.
That's when we experience his faithfulness.
That's when we see him work in amazing ways.
That's when the adventure really begins.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Matthew 11, what's the one thing you want our listeners to take away from this conversation?
I think the most important thing is that faith is more than just believing certain things.
Yeah.
It's about letting those beliefs transform you.
From the inside out.
From the inside out. And it's about choosing to follow Jesus.
Yeah.
Even when it's hard.
Even when it doesn't make sense.
Even when it doesn't make sense.
Because he is the way.
He is the way.
To true peace and rest.
He is the way to the Father.
Well, thank you for joining us on this journey through Matthew 11.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope this deep dive has encouraged you
to
keep seeking,
keep
questioning, and keep growing in your faith.
And we'll see you next time.
See you next time.